was a peaceful day outside the newspaper office, but inside, a sinister undercurrent was beginning to flow, and its tide would soon flood all Denver in a wave of fear.
John Atkins.
Bring the wagon, Hank. Right, Smitty. Your last night sometime, you think, Joyce?
Looks like it. But why, Smitty? Robbery, you think?
I doubt it. John didn't have anything worth stealing anyway, did he?
I wouldn't think so.
Right between the eyes and from close range, too. He couldn't have had much warning.
Be a good boy. We'll be going home in a minute. If you're looking for something special on that issue, maybe I can help.
No, thank you. I just happen to like to study up on the history of places that I've never visited before.
Well, you can read all night as far as I'm concerned. But I got to go home and get dressed decent for a wake.
Oh?
An old friend of mine was murdered by some varmint last night.
Murdered? Is that so?
Yeah. Old John Atkins. Shot. Funny thing, I always thought he'd drink himself to death. Poor devil. He used to hit the bottle pretty hard. Many is the time I sat with him through a session of the DTs. Now I got sit with him through his own wake.
Well, I'm terribly sorry to have kept you, Mr. Mickles.
Angus, name.
Well, thank you, Angus. Angus.
Huh?
Well, good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Pete Varden. Yeah, I'm Pete Varden.
Thank you very much.
All right, it's nice to get.
Yes?
Mrs. Gray,
That's right.
I've come to collect $5,000.
The cashier's downstairs.
I'm fully aware of that, Mrs. Gray. However, I believe this is one debt that you'll want to pay yourself.
You talk in riddles, mister. Who are you?
Let's just call me Whittier. Michael Whittier. You've heard about Atkins.
Yes, John Atkins. Murdered. He was a janitor here.
Mrs. Gray, I'm a salesman. John Atkins is one of my samples.
This ad was placed 10 years ago. Where did you get it?
I've kept it. Surely time hasn't made you forget.
Forget the only man I ever loved? Forget how he was lynched by a brutal mob for a crime he didn't commit? No, time hasn't let me forget that.
I thought not. Mrs. Gray, Atkins was one of the 6 men who lynched your husband.
Can you prove that?
I was there. The night they took your husband out of jail. I have a little souvenir for you here. A button from the shirt of Atkins. Another from the late Pete Varden.
Pete Varden? He was a friend of my husband's.
Varden hated your husband. Your husband had money and power. Men like that are often hated. Mrs. Gray, you owe me $5,000.
This says I want all 6. You'll get the money when the job's finished.
Fair enough. But I'll want a down payment as an indication of your good intentions.
$2,000 now. The rest when the whole job's done.
Thank you. I'll be back for the balance. Good evening, Mrs. Gray.
She's there, all right. Just hope she can help us.
Come in. Well, the strong arm of the law. What crime have I committed?
We came to talk to you about Atkins.
Yes, I heard. But how can I help you?
Well, after all, he did work for you.
Yes, but I rarely ever saw the man. He was just the janitor here.
Even so, I was hoping you might give us some lead. Did he quarrel with anyone that you know of?
Not to my knowledge.
Had he received any large sums of money lately?
Atkins? Certainly not. He didn't even get paid till next week.
Oh, well, it was worth a try, Smitty. 2 identical murders, both men shot between the eyes, yet one man had nothing in common with the other, so far as we know. Boy, this one's really got us stumped, Mrs. Gray.
I can imagine.
You know of any connection between Atkins and the other victim?
No, I'm sorry. As I said, I rarely saw the man. Now, if you gentlemen will please excuse me, I'm quite busy tonight.
Wasn't there till late, was she?
I wonder how she found that out.
Found out what?
Pete Varden was dead. We just came from his saddle shop.
News travels fast sometimes.
Yeah, maybe, but...
George McLaren's just been shot. Where is he? In front of his hardware store.
That is number 1.
Just one moment, sir. Please put your hands on top of the table.
Now look, mister. This game's on the level.
I'll believe that when I can see what you're doing with your hands.
What's the trouble?
This man was manipulating this wheel. I've been watching him for quite some time now.
You better pick up your money, mister, and try your luck somewhere else.
No, indeed, sir. I intend to stay right here until I get an honest spin.
Now look, I don't have to throw you out.
That's enough. If you've got any complaints, make them to me.
Not much doubt about it being the work of the same man, is there?
Same trademark. Third button missing off his shirt, just like the other two. I think I'll have another talk with Maple Gray.
But George McLaren is loved by everyone in this town. The police will pull out all stops to find out who killed him. They've already been asking questions.
Why?
Because Atkins worked here.
I wouldn't worry about the police if I were you. Policemen have little minds. They work in narrow channels. They're always concerning themselves with motives and witnesses. I plan my work so that I can control those elements. It's safer that way. For example, you're the only living person who could possibly give them one whit of information about me.
You'd better leave out of the side door.
Very well, Mrs. Gray. I'm quite sure you won't talk. Because if you did, it would mean that we'd both hang. Wouldn't it?
Now what?
I'm a little curious about something, Maple. When we were here a few minutes ago, George mentioned the fact that 2 men had been murdered. Now, we had just come from the scene of the second killing, and yet you already knew that 2 men had been killed.
So?
Now there's been a third killing. You know about that one, too?
Look, Smith, if you're accusing me of...
No, I'm not accusing you. But you knew about that second killing before you had any right to. Now, who told you?
The answer is very simple. I don't count the murders in Denver. That's your business. If you'd said 6 men were dead, I'd have believed you.
You're lying, Maple.
I'm not lying. I just made a mistake. Is there any law against that?
I don't know. Because I don't know what that mistake was. We questioned everyone who had the least suspicion attached to them, but with no luck at all. I was ready to follow any lead, no matter how slight it might be.
This one didn't want to come.
Well, you weren't wearing your badge. I didn't realize who the gentleman was.
I'm a detective.
Oh, yes, I know that now.
Would you sit down, please?
Thank you, sir. May I ask what this is all about?
Suppose we start with your name.
Whittier. Michael Whittier.
When did you get to town?
Well, now, what is this all about?
Would you just answer the questions, please?
Well, I've been here about 3 days.
Where were you at 11 o'clock last night?
Quite frankly, I don't remember.
Well, start remembering.
Oh, yes. 11 o'clock. Now, let me see. Oh, yes, I was at that gambling casino, Maple
Grace.
Yes, Maple Grace. I know, that's where I was.
Can you prove that?
Oh, certainly. It was just about 11 o'clock. Yes, I was there for quite some time, and I caught one of her dealers cheating. I made quite a fuss. Oh, there are a number of witnesses.
What do you do for a living, Mr. Whittier?
Well, you might say I'm a speculator.
A speculator? In what?
Oil, minerals, things of that nature. Anything that promises a profit. Well, if you gentlemen are finished with me now.
Not quite. Hank?
Yes, Smitty.
Take Mr. Whittier, find that dealer, and check his alibi.
And if he's on the level?
Turn him loose.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Smitty, why are you especially interested in him?
His alibi. Maple's smart. She runs honest games because, like she says, it pays in the long run. Yet this fellow accuses one of her dealers of cheating him. Causes a row in front of witnesses. Why?
Yeah, it does sound kind of funny, huh?
Where'd you find him?
Oh, he was coming out of the Denver press office.
Denver Press. What would a stranger in town be doing there? all cleaned up here anyway. I think I'll walk over and have a talk with old Angus. Howdy, Angus.
Whoa, Tom. What brings you to my musty domain?
Idle curiosity, probably. Did you have a fellow in here a little while ago wearing a striped suit and steel-rimmed glasses?
Yeah, there's in a couple. 3 times, as a matter of fact.
You know him?
No, he's a stranger to me. Why?
Just curious about that fellow. Whittier says his name is. What do you want in here?
All he ever did was sit over there and read that old volume of past editions.
Well, that's odd. He never did ask you anything about Pete Varden or McLaren or Johnny Atkins, did he?
No. You aren't thinking that...
Just checking out every lead, Angus. What did he talk about?
We didn't talk too much. Seemed to enjoy reading. Said he liked to study the history of the place.
That a little unusual?
It sure is. About the only person that ever came in here to read those old papers was somebody that wanted to check on the gossip. So as to bring it up again.
Part of a page cut out here, Angus.
Well, that's mighty strange.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
I'd like to know who in the world would dare come in here and mutilate these old issues like that. Well, that is something...
Angus?
Huh?
Tell me something. Does Maple Gray ever come in here and read these old editions?
Maple Gray? Good Lord, no. Why?
Just wondered. Thanks, Angus.
Yeah.
Maple Gray had slipped a piece of paper in her desk when George and I first visited her. I was curious to get a closer look at it. It wasn't there now, but I found something else of interest. A button. And it could have been the one missing from George McLaren's shirt. I was more anxious than ever now to find that paper. That's got to be it. But who in the world would want to steal a page out of a 10-year-old newspaper and then burn it? You asked the question, now why don't you answer?
Where'd you find this burnt piece of paper?
In Maple Gray's office.
Good Lord. Don't that beat all?
What do you suppose was on that page, Angus?
Pretty hard to say. I can't remember what was in last week's edition, let alone 10 years ago. Now, you have a cup of printer's ink. Anyway, it's that black.
Angus, tell me, what about ads? Any way of checking on who advertised in that issue?
You know, you might have something there. Maple Gray, huh? You know, I'm so old, my memory's getting just a little bit fogged. But I think it's coming back to me now what this is all about.
Well, I wish you'd tell me.
You just hold your horses, young fella. Let me make positive sure. You know, it was so all fired long ago, it died down before you ever came here. Yeah, 1858, and June. Yeah, here it is. Maple Gray took out a 5-column ad in that edition to post a reward for the men who lynched her husband.
You didn't know who the lynchers were. You just picked their names out of the newspaper to make sure they were in Denver the night your husband was killed.
I don't know what you're talking about. Look, if he's your killer, then arrest him and leave me out of it.
We released him before we knew, but he'll never get out of Denver. We'll get him, and we'll get you too, Maple.
But I know nothing about it. Absolutely nothing.
How did this torn page get in your stove? Come on, Maple. 3 innocent men have been killed because of you. Take a look at this. Pete Barden's marriage license. He was 200 miles away in Central City the night your husband was lynched.
You're wrong. You must be wrong.
Doc Henderson's record. George McLaren was in bed with pneumonia.
They're lies, all lies. You've made this up.
No. You're the one that's lying, Maple. You know this man. Now, who is he?
I only knew him as Whittier, the man who accused my dealer of cheating.
You also know him as a professional killer who's trying to take you for $15,000.
You've got no proof. No proof at all. Now get out of here.
No proof, Maple? Sorry, Maple, but I'm afraid that statue of yours is ruined.
That's the least of my worries now.
Let's go. Maple had always told her customers not to gamble unless they could afford to lose. She should have taken her own advice, because she was playing in a game in which nobody can afford to lose.